you're new to this channel, this craft, and wanted to kind of pick this up as either a hobby or potentially as a sort of career, then you're going to have to be faced with a load of choices around the sort of equipment that you buy. Now, when you first start out, you think, right, I need some gold leaf. So you go online, and then you'll look and you'll see, oh, there's two different sorts. There's loose leaf and transfer. I don't know which one I need. Then you find out which one you need, look in there, and you think, oh man, there's about 20 different variations of gold leaf. I don't know which one of them I need. And then sort of that'll spiral down with things like the gilder's tip, the gilder's mop, and things like that. So today I'm going to be looking at gold leaf. I'm going to be focusing just on that and seeing what these variations are like, because really they're going to come down in carat with the different sort of tones that you get. And, that might have a difference in its finish, might have a difference in how sort of easily it goes on, how delicate it is, and all of those sort of things. And I've wanted to do this for ages, but obviously, where I live, a book of gold leaf is about £30. So I just have always used what's tried and tested for me, which is 23 karat gold. But I've always wanted to try out all of the different shades, and that's what I'm going to do today. So a massive thank you to the Heritage Craft Fund. They made this video possible and allowed me to go out and buy a load of gold leaf because they gave me a grant to make a few videos. So massive thank you for that. The piece I'm going to be making, I've prepared this panel and I've acid etched all of the kind of pieces that I'm going to gild. And I've within that I've named the gold leaf that will go in each square so that you can see a kind of mirror finish as well as the stippled, really nice sort of sparkly acid etch finish. As well as this being a nice experiment, I think something like this is going to be a great thing to have. If you're going to be selling your work on the road or going to need to take samples for people to see, something like this is going to be really handy. I've made videos in the past where I'm comparing techniques that I'm using, but I keep those pieces. Things like laser versus sandblaster. That's a really good thing to be able to show people because one is a lot cheaper than the other, but it doesn't have quite the same result. So keeping hold of all these sort of things for when you may be sort of taking it around to a client, whether you're going to be doing like a trade fair or something like that, whatever. It's just going to be anything like that's really handy to have. And I quite like it. I think it's going to make quite a nice little piece to have up on the wall. Anyway, right. But before we get on with that, if you're a fan of reverse glass, gold leaf, sign painting, digital processes and much more, then you're in the right place because that's all this channel's about, and I try to release a video every couple of weeks. Also, if you'd like to support the channel, there's a link to my Patreon in the description. There's also a link to buy me a coffee if you ever fancy just buying me a drink. And there's a link to the Facebook group. That's a really good place to go if this is what you're into. Some really talented guys on there, all helping each other out and sharing advice, so I'd strongly recommend going on there. What else have I got links to? Also my Etsy shop where I'm selling a few designs and my merch store. Anyway, that out of the way, let's crack on with it. Okay, so I've got my setup here ready for gilding, and although in the past I've done quite a few gilding tutorials, that doesn't mean, that's the sort of final word on how to apply gold leaf and all of the sort of processes and sort of materials that you use. I've been fortunate enough to be contacted and learn from a load of the people who have joined the Facebook group who are much more experienced than me. And so I'm going to be sort of changing up my method a bit. And to be honest, a couple of these things is the first time I've ever done them. So we'll see if they work. I'm pretty certain they will because of the people who have told me how to do it. But I'm going to start with the gelatin. So I've got this pack of gelatin. I've had it a little while. And the way I've always sort of been told as to whether or not this needs replacing is based on how brittle it is. So if I fold this, that's quite brittle. So I think that is good enough to use. That's my sort of test. I think, right, this sheet of gelatin is good enough to use because of how brittle it is. However, there are other sheets in this pack because I've had it a little while, and I pull them out and kind of fold it and it doesn't crack like that. So I thought, although there's the odd bit in there, I think it's time for a new pack of gelatin. You see that they're not the same. I'd basically just get whatever the supermarket sells. This stuff, I can't remember where I got it from, but it's really good, really, really nice stuff. And then this is what I got from the local supermarket. What I found out on the group as well is the kind of difference in the quantities of the diamonds that people use. My method was using 4 diamonds, so diamonds being these tiny little sections here, per 1 pint of distilled water. But then I've seen people who are saying they use 2 diamonds per pint of distilled water. And, the less you can use, the better, obviously, because it's going to be a cleaner gild. So I'm going to give that a try today. I'm going to go with 2 diamonds of gelatin, or in this case, 1 diamond, because I'm only using half a pint of distilled water. Another comment that I thought was really good that I'm going to follow as well. This is from Anne McDonald, who's really, really renowned glass artist. If you ever see her comment on any of the Facebook posts, pay attention to what she says. And she said she replaces her gelatin every few months, because once it's been opened and the air gets to it, that I assume that could probably make it a little bit, or sort of affect the quality a bit. So again, for something that's a couple of pounds from a supermarket, I'm going to stick with that as well. So I think that's a good bit of advice, and especially coming from Anne, who knows what she's talking about. So moving on to getting started with the gild. Distilled water, always. Never use mineral water or anything like that, because it's got minerals in it and they'll show up in your gild. I've got my diamond in there, and I usually leave this for about 5 minutes. So cold distilled water, pop the diamond in, and that just lets it soften up. You'll see it sort of curl up and stuff like that. Or 5 minutes or more, it's just, I wouldn't do it for any less than 5 minutes. And then I'm going to heat that in the microwave, and I'm not going to boil it. I'm going to heat it to a point that's, too hot to kind of put your finger in or something, but I don't want it to boil. So you'll all know your own sort of microwaves, and you can test that on just standard water without the gelatin to see what the boiling point is, and do it probably about 10 or 15 seconds less than that. So just going to do that, and then we'll get started with the gilding stuff. Okay, so my size mix is heated up. What I'm going to do now is something that was recommended to me by a guy called Joe Balabusco. Now, Joe's got his own YouTube channel that I'm going to put a link to in the description, and I'll put a link to in the top corner of this video. He got in contact with me having found my channel. We ended up chatting and then sort of hooked up for a FaceTime chat a few days before Christmas. He's an absolutely lovely bloke, a real veteran of the trade, had such nice stories about some of the jobs he's worked on and just his life in general as a sort of sign painter, gilder. So I'd really thoroughly recommend checking his channel out. I'm going to be stealing one of his tips off there and here, but there's so much more on there than this, so I would certainly go and check that out. So his tip is to add a drop of dish soap to your size mix. Now, when he does it, he does 2 drops, but I'm only using half the amount of size mix, so I'm just going to do 1. So, excuse the state of this bottle. I've been decorating, so it's got all paint all on the outside. But the way Joe does it is he just dips a paintbrush in the dish soap, let the excess come off, and then it's 1 drop. There we go. So, like I say, he does 2 drops, but that's because he's using twice the amount of liquid. And what this does is helps the sort of size go on more evenly, because obviously, this is a degreaser, washing up liquid. So I think it's just, it's just an extra level of sort of cleanliness. It's going to be smoother. So I'm going to give it a go. It's my first time of doing it, but I have 100% faith in the fact that it's going to be brilliant, because having seen Joe do it and seen his amazing work, yeah, it can't not work. So before I get the gold out, let's just have a look at the tips that I've got. So I'm going to be applying whole leaves because I've made these squares to a little bit smaller than the size of a complete leaf. But I thought it was a good opportunity to have a look at the gilder's tips and sort of see what the pros and cons are of these. So this is just a standard gilder's tip. It's not great for applying whole leaves because the leaves are that big. You can do it, you can get it like that, and the sort of leaf dangles as you apply it. What I've learned with using this, these are brilliant, and they are the sort of standard old school tools of the trade. But I sort of manipulated mine a bit and was bending it to try and sort of get into awkward places. But the problem with that is if it has anything that sort of pings back, it's going to split your leaf. So if, for example, I bend this to get it into a position, then bend it back to pick up the leaf, if I then let go and that thing folds back, that's going to split my leaf in half. So just a little tip that I've learned, I'd strongly recommend probably not bending these about. You can get smaller ones that aren't that wide, so it's probably worth just investing in a few different sizes. This is the Smith tip. This is Dave Smith's tip for applying whole gold leaves. I love this. I can't say a bad thing about it. I'm going to be using it today. Unfortunately, you can't get it anymore, so you'll probably have to keep an eye out on see if you can get one on eBay or something like that. And then a widely available one, this is the Thorn tip. So what you do is you apply your petroleum jelly onto it, place it down like that, and then put your leaf on like this. One thing I've found about this, and like with any tip, you need to be mindful of how much petroleum jelly you're putting on it. At the start, I'd put a lot on here, and when I applied the leaf, and this is when I was doing a mirror finish gild, this sort of fine pattern was on that gild, and even on the other side, even after I burnished it, and that's because of the amount of petroleum jelly I'd put on it. So yeah, you just have to kind of be mindful of that with any tip that you're using, because even if your gold leaf doesn't get stuck to the tip or split or something like that, you might end up with residue on the leaf that just will see through on the other side. So anyway, that's that out of the way. Let's have a look at the gold. So this is the gold I'm going to be using today, from 23 carat down to 12 carat. Again, I just want to give a massive thank you to the Heritage Crafts Fund for giving me the access to the funds to be able to do this. I'm going to put a link to the Heritage Crafts website down in the description of the video. What we're doing here is on the red list of endangered crafts. So they're a charity who are looking at preserving these crafts. So any way you can, by just spreading the word or anything like that, it's definitely worth getting it out there, because yeah, it's just a great organisation. So what I've done is, that's 23 carat gold, and if I move this up here, you might be able to see, if I move this a bit, these little bits are etched with what they are on it. If you want to know how I made this panel, this was acid etched. So I used hydrofluoric acid mixed with mica, and then with a tiny little vinyl stencil around the edge, just painted it black. And yeah, that's going to be my sort of template piece. So I'm going to do these panels, and then whatever ones are my favourite colours, I'm going to do the word gold in one colour and the word leaf in the other. So I'm not going to have all these out, because that's just asking for trouble, because if you spill anything on this, that's it, ruined. You want to keep these far away unless you're using it, especially like I say, your size mix there is easy to kind of splash a drop, and one drop on a book of gold leaf, and yeah, it's not going to be that good anymore. So let's start with 23 carat gold. Another, well, not really a tip, but whenever I'm using a book that I don't get finished, I always fold whatever the last page was, because it's easier to then just go to that exact page in the book. So it just makes life a little bit easier. So let's bring this forward. That leaf looks like it's got a little bit of a fold in it. Hopefully we'll be able to eliminate that. And obviously, with me saying about the moisture, that goes for your fingers as well. And they don't even have to be wet. Just the sort of oils on your skin. If you touch that gold leaf is going to get stuck to your finger. So pop this down. Give this a blow. Nearly, but like I said, I made this a little bit bigger. Plus, we're always going to do 2 coats of this. You're never going to do a single coat of gold leaf, because it's sort of so thin that yeah, you'll be able to see light through it and stuff like that. And you're just going to, once you burnish it, there'll be a few little bits and holes in it and stuff like that. So very gently, there was the tiniest little bit on my hand there, and it was just ever so gently put on there. So there we go, easy as that. So just make sure I've got the right one, which is this 23 carat gold. Give that a really good mix up. And with the size, you can't put too much on. You know, you want this swimming in it. Okay, right, that's gone on all right. That tiny little folded corner is a little bit annoying, but again, doesn't matter. We're going to be patching that up with another coat, potentially a third if there are any sort of other holes in it. So now moving on to 23 carat red. And it'll be good that these are both 23 carat and next to each other, because we'll see if there is a sort of noticeable difference between the two. Fresh booklet here. So just have a look. I mean, initially I can't see any difference, but probably not going to without them sort of sat side by side. If you ever do need to blow on a leaf, just to sort of flatten it out, make sure you sort of bang over the top of it, and it's a tiny little blow. Don't sort of do it as an extended breath. Otherwise, you know, you can blow it and then it will just lift up and that'll be gone. It'll be floating around the room. Plenty of size. And as always, cotton wool, just to sort of push that very gently into the surface, because, you know, although the acid etching is very shallow, you know, there are still grooves there that this needs to get into. So it's just ever so really, really gently pushing that in. Right, 2 down, 6 to go. Right, now on 22.5 carat champagne gold. So that definitely looks different. I couldn't initially see the differences between 23 carat and 23 carat red, but that champagne is much lighter. And sure, that can't be down to that minute 0.5 of a carat, but it almost looks like a different texture. Yeah, because the carat's just really, well, it's the metal content in the gold. You know, 24 carat gold is pure, and then anything down from that has got different metals in it, normally copper or silver or something like that. So strange that the 0.5 of a carat makes it look like a completely different sort of material altogether. Yeah, it's clear as day how different in colour that is. Just move that round. So that's starting to dry up now. What I've found as well, a lot of the time, because I only ever use 23 carat and 12 carat, 12 carat's obviously a lot heavier, or not heavier, but it's a lot, goes on easier, I suppose, not quite so delicate, and also seems to take a lot longer to sort of go to the mirror finish, so you have to wait a lot longer before you can burnish it. Anyway, that's the 22.5 carat champagne. Now moving on to 22 carat moon gold. So we'll see if those properties of that champagne leaf are sort of carried over as the carat goes down. Again, looking at that looks more, as I'd expect, look more like the sort of standard 23 carat. So yeah, that champagne gold certainly seems like an anomaly. No, not sure. I should have taken a sort of close-up of the champagne leaf. I'll do that when I do the second gild. So let's just pop that on there then. Oh dear, look at that. Don't know what that is because I haven't sort of put any more petroleum jelly on my hand, so it just happens sometimes. Right. And when you're doing this, you need to keep making sure that it's dry, because if it's wet and you push it, you'll end up with just your gold leaf ending up on your cotton wool rather than on your glass. Right, what have we got next? 20 carat citron gold. So, citron, let's see what that's like. I imagine quite yellow. Right, well, I'm just seeing through the paper there, that looks really pale. Oh, yeah, that's lovely. Really nice, sort of, I don't know, it's difficult to describe. I can't say pastel, but it's really, really light. Again, that looks very similar to the champagne gold in the sort of texture of it. So I don't know if you can tell from the last one, it certainly does look different. I think as well, that was it. This 20 carat was the one that I could get as superior. So when you buy gold leaf, there'll be standard and superior. I've always bought standard and just thought, what can be superior about it? Don't know whether it's the weight or something like that, thickness. But this is the one leaf I did manage to get, which is a superior leaf. So we'll see if it looks superior at the end. Definitely starting to see a nice sort of set of tones in there though. You know, looking at this now, I'm not sure how well that's coming across, but yeah, at the start when I couldn't really see the differences between the top two, I can certainly see the difference now. I really like that. It's not quite rose gold, but there's definitely a tint of red in it. That champagne, just quite strange. I mean, it looks a bit like a sort of silver to me, but we'll see. It's difficult to tell at this stage. They haven't sort of flattened out and gone to the mirror finish. They need burnishing, they need a second coat. So we'll see. Right, what have we got next? 18 carat green. Certainly see a tint of green in that. One of the reasons I wanted to do this as well. Oh, that's delicate. See that? Just blew it and it blew the corner off it. So might have been split already or something like that, but I'll have to get that in the second gild. But yeah, I always think when you look at things, you know, in the sort of colour chart and things like that, like they are on the sites, and I get that's the only way they can, or the most accurate way they can show it, but you know, if you're going to be showing this stuff in person, there's nothing like being able to show the sort of reflective qualities of it. So that's why I'd sort of done an acid etch design rather than just a kind of, you know, the mirrored stuff, because oh yeah, that is super delicate. Look, lost another bit there. Yeah, because it's all about sort of being able to see how the light reacts to it when you have the different techniques. And I think acid etched areas and the clear mirrored areas are enough for you to kind of, you know, gauge whether you like it or not, or sort of see the properties of it. So this is where we're at now. I don't know if that was just one weak leaf, but that green gold seems very, very delicate to me. Yeah. Right, 2 to go, and this one is 16.9 carat lemon gold. That's what that looks like. Definitely feel like you're getting, sort of seeing that metal content similar to the 12 carat white gold. That looks much more rigid, I suppose, for want of a better term. So let's see how it goes on. went on lovely. Yeah, it seems like quite a sturdy leaf, that one. You know, sort of pushing it in, even though it's only just been applied. You know, if we look at some of these others, you know, they've got the little, got the little splits in there. That one's definitely got a few down the bottom. I think they all have, except for the champagne, which, yeah, for me, that was a strange leaf. But yeah, this, you can certainly tell the extra metal content in that. Which one is it? Lemon. Yeah, goes on very nicely. So now just going to apply the 12 karat white gold, which I've done a lot of times in a lot of videos. I know how this goes on. It's a nice leaf to work with. And the difficulty here, I suppose, is now this is all from one supplier. I get my gold from Rights of Limb, and I know there's going to be differences in the way people, in the places people get their gold from, and you know how it goes on, I suppose. You know, I've seen stuff on the Facebook group lately where people have bought gold and they're really not happy with the finish of it. You know, sort of saying it's going on, it looks a bit dirty and stuff like that. And I don't know what to suggest about that, because I mean, I've never had that problem, but what I've never done is shopped around. You know, I've got my gold from Rights of Limb from the start. By the way, this isn't a sponsor. I've just always used their stuff, and I've never had a problem with any of it. So I've never seen the need to look elsewhere. And you know, I suppose that is a difficulty. I'll just suggest, you know, hopefully the reputable suppliers get the good quality sort of consistent stuff. I don't know. It's again, I think per territory or per your area, the Facebook group's such a good source of information for stuff like that. You know, because I'm in the UK, so I don't know anything about these companies outside of the UK. And that's what we got. I'm not sure how well that's showing up on the camera at the moment, but what I'll do now is I'm going to do the second coat as a time lapse, just because I haven't got anything else to sort of say on each leaf. But I'm then looking forward to kind of looking at these and seeing which ones I think are nice, which ones potentially are a bit, well, if any. If I wouldn't use them again, I wouldn't recommend them. But I suppose having a piece like this comes down to the fact you can show people and they can make the choices. Anyway, let's just wait for this to dry, apply the second coat, and then come back and see what it all looks like. Right, so just before I do the time lapse, I'm just going to film the burnishing of the gold leaf. So what that is as this goes on, you'll see when up close here, you've got, you know, creases in the gold. And all you need to do is using, well, either some cotton wool, a soft pad, or a bit of velvet is burnish that out. So what I use is this product here. It's a burnishing pad from the Goldfather, and it's really, really nice, really soft velvet, so you're not going to scratch that gold. I used to use cotton wool in the past, and one thing, again, this is from Joe's channel. Sorry, Joe, I'm not going to steal all of your good tips, but he's used in the past the kind of makeup sponges, what you use to sort of, well, a makeup application sponge, I suppose. And as soon as he said it, I thought, yeah, they're so soft. You know, that'd be ideal. So it's just to kind of, yeah, like I say, go and check Joe's channel. There's so many tips on there. I've told you a couple of them, but yeah, this is important because, you know, you want to make sure that while getting all these creases out, you're not going to scratch the gold. So let's just sort of gently, just sort of putting that on there flat and sort of rubbing it in in sort of soft circular motions. And then now, I don't know if you can see, but there's still a little crease in there on that little acid etched bit. Yeah, those little folds just polish out. And you're ready for your next layer of gold leaf. If you don't do this, it's just gonna look tatty, you know, because you're just gilding over creases. So it's you know, the difference between that, which is covered in creases, and that which has just been burnished. You know, hopefully, I can't tell if that's coming out very well on the camera, but yeah, there's still a little bit of burnishing left to do on there. You know, I can see on the on the 23 there's a couple of creases, so don't overdo it. You know, you don't want to be rubbing your gold off, but it is about getting these tiny little minute creases out. Anyway, right, I'll finish off burnishing and do the time lapse of the second gild. Right, so here's the finished panel. It's going to be quite difficult because the light's so sort of varied in here, but firstly just going to look at the gild, and I'm so happy with it. I absolutely love how that's turned out. I think, you know, those tips on Joe's channel, I'm going to be following them. That's my new way of gilding now. So yeah, I'm so happy with it. Just all of the sort of bright areas are really crisply mirrored. You know, it's just gone on lovely. And then looking overall, let's try and get to a point where none of this is blown out. I think that's probably about right. There's a lot of variety in colour there. You know, I always thought, not that it was a con, that's the wrong thing, but I sort of thought, is there that much difference? And I mean, the top ones, 23 karat gold and 23 karat red. Under some lights, you can't see the difference at all. You know, but then you do get that lovely little slightly red tint to it that, yeah, it does look different. I think these ones, they're almost like a rose gold, the champagne and the moon gold, more so than a red gold. They certainly got a sort of pinky tint to them. The citron was the Manetti leaf, which is the, I don't know, it's probably costs a third more for a book of 24 leaves. And it's lovely. I love the colour of it, but I didn't notice anything different about applying it. You know, it didn't go on easier. It wasn't, to my knowledge, thicker or anything. I don't know. To me, it just seemed like all of the others. You could certainly tell when you get down into the, you know, the 16.9 carat and the 12 carat that there's more metal in there. There are different sort of texture of leaf. I don't know what I expected from this video, really. I'd always wanted to do this and have a look at the gold leaves and see what the differences are. And I think having a panel like this, like I said before, this is going to be handy. If you show this to, or can take this to clients and they can have a look at it and choose the finish they want, you know, and base your sort of prices on that, I suppose, because these are all, although not a lot, you know, there is a varying price range with these. But overall, I think it was a nice experiment. I hope you've got something from this video in terms of some new techniques that you can probably use. Again, thanks to Joe Balabusco for his awesome advice, and well, and just the channel's amazing. He's a great bloke and he's really active on the Facebook group. You know, so keep an eye out. He comments on a lot of videos, he comments on a lot of people's posts, and I would just take what he says as gospel. But anyway, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you got something out of it. If you did, please share the video with anyone else who you think might enjoy it. And till next time, cheers.